I mean, 95% of everything we raise goes back. Maybe 97% because I don't take a salary. I never have. And
that is so noble.
That really is nice. Yeah.
but I just, the officers that I have, the volunteers, and the vendors that I have Northern, Southern California, they're spread everywhere because we don't want to have one.
Right.
If somebody says, I'm in Baltimore, I'm going to have to get all the way down to Southern California.
Right.
And then that costs the daily, every day to that department.
Right. Totally.
And
They're not as likely to do that.
right.
Yes.
And so, but I'm just absolutely thrilled that I think that's what we have 16 bonded, insured vendors in every corner.
Oh, perfect.
But you know, I walked into the DEA's office. Of course, I was wearing red bottoms and a chinchilla cape, so I can't imagine they wouldn't take it seriously. But I said, so tell me about the stats that you get for each dog, and do you correlate it to that area?
Right.
We don't show the stats for a dog. Why would you do that?
Yeah.
Could you imagine? I said, are you a football fan? He said, yeah. And I said, where'd you go to school? He said, A&M. I said, where'd your kids go to school? He said, A&M. I said, can you imagine if Johnny Manziel got up there to run one of those fancy,
Place.
plays?
Yeah.
And they said, we don't know whatever he's done. The little basket's fast.
Right.
No.
Right.
We want to say, this is the Michael Jordan of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly right.
This is what they've taken out. And by the way, like, I'll start getting a flood of, because all the drugs do look alike, but I'll start getting a flood of white China heroin. So I have a group down here that I'll send out, hey guys, be very careful because this is what I'm getting. I'll send them pictures, you know, and it's got a certain ranch brand on it. It's got nothing to do with the ranch, but this is the cartel. And the head of the Gulf Coast cartel gets out at the end of this month. Not one person has talked about it.
Really?
He's been incarcerated for how many years? 20 years.
Seems like a story that needs to be told. For sure.
Yeah.
So everyone has sort of what I call an OG story, how they began. Did you have an early love of dogs? Horses, I know.
Yeah.
But how did all this start?
I grew up on a shipyard.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Were you
But
christening the ships with the champagne?
that was it. But my
fun part of
family
it.
had a shipyard in Freeport, Texas.
Okay.
And which is between, I guess, Galveston and Matagorda, basically.
Yeah.
Freeport.
Okay.
Get on 288, and you say, I'm going to jump off in
Okay.
Gulf of Mexico. Literally, the Gulf of Mexico was my front door.
Maintenance?
When they would come into our shipyards, if they'd be foreign flagged, I knew at 7 or 8 years old, there was no 911 or anything like that. But in the waterfront was kind of its own, you didn't really see police patrolling. It was kind of its own little maritime.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was the Wild West,
Yeah.
I would say. And we knew, or I did at 8 years old, if there was, let's say, a ship coming up from Colombia, and, you know, everybody gets off and their English is not their first language, and they need fuel, they're empty, and they're dredging 18 feet.
Right. Wow.
I'm a port kid. I know how deep. What do you have in there that you're dredging if you're empty? And so I would get on the radio and call the sheriff and would be like,
Incredible.
Uncle Robert, you need to come down here. There's some people that have gotten off the speak real funny at the dock, and the belly of their deal is pulling, and I don't think they can handle any more fuel. Of course, it's jammed with dope.
Yeah.
Or Pablo Escobar people. I mean,
Right.
they want to go. We have more ports in Texas
Yes.
than anywhere else.
No.
We hear about Galveston, Houston, and we hear about Brownsville.
That's about it. Yeah.
There's 17.
Yeah.
So, as a drug dealer, let's hope they're not watching, I would want to go into every Ingleside,
Right.
Port Neches, Freeport,
The less
They
obvious.
don't have the manpower to back it up. So when I see something come through Port of Houston and they got, 50 kilos of cocaine, that's what they were willing to part with because the real load came behind them that y'all are also focused on that.
Wow. Interesting.
It's wild. It's a whole different subculture.
It's an
obviously.
education item is ever.
Yeah. Well, yeah. But you got it.
Well, and my dad was one of the biggest drug dealers in the United States when I was growing up. He was a pot dealer, but he was from Mexico to Canada twice a week. I mean, we had a car with 500 low.
Gotcha.
Remember that last
Oh my
one?
gosh.
Low.
Okay. All right.
Just being aware as a little girl growing up and seeing it change hands and knowing the inside of just, a gringo, right?
Yeah.
What he's doing,
Yeah,
what
right.
he's capable of, and the amount of money and the amount of drugs that I saw was nothing compared to what these cops are getting off the streets and what I don't think the average everyday American citizen realizes is really just driving past them behind the Amazon truck.
Yeah. That's something.
And that they're able to put these fake floorboards in semis.
Yeah.
And how much can be moved.
Or the candy and the number one way that drugs are transported in America is the U.S. Postal Service.
I've heard that. Yeah.
Gosh, it's alarming to hear that.
Just, there's no way. They're government workers, as
Yeah.
you know. There's thousands of packages that come through. So I took an interdiction specialist that did nothing but mail,
Yeah.
brought him down to teach a class. And that, besides giving the dogs, I've given over 200,000 hours in T-Cool training hours.
Incredible.
And
Wow.
so, in other words, we don't just hand them the dogs. No.
Right,
Now
Right.
the training begins. Now, and we want to do everything to make you successful. And so I had a friend of mine's daughter that was in AA growing up. And 20 years ago, I took her to a meeting and I was like, oh, there's this. It's AA. And I went, well, they don't know they're at AA. It's just anonymous.
Right.
Oh, that's
Isn't it nice to learn a new word?
Right.
Anonymous.
Anonymous. Very, very vague to me, but I've heard about it before. Covert, incognito, but yeah, anonymous. Go figure. And so then I realized that there is so much more going on that people don't realize. Oh, yeah. And like we just posted something yesterday that the Lay's potato chips, the Nerds,
Nerds candies.
Nerds
Oh
candies.
God, they're so good.
They were taking real packaging, opening them up, they're lacing them, and resealing it.
Wow.
That's awful.
We took that off of all packed under a school bag. $1 worth.
Wow.
Incredible.
That is.
Where was the venue for that? What?
It was in Hidalgo County.
Okay. All right. Wow. So it's
If you know any billionaires down there that want to help me,
right. Yeah. Surely there's one within a stone's throw in Texas nowadays.
That's true.
Dang. Wow. Well,
I want you guys to dive deep into some of your favorite parts of Texas society.
Gosh, there's so many layers and levels to it. For me, as a native Texan of 6 generations, I always wanted to help Texas be perceived as a state of force and not a state of farce. Grew up in Austin.
Okay.
Yeah. And so, there's a lot to make fun of with Texans and Texas. And I wanted to cast a lighter, brighter side to that. So part of that is the philanthropy scene in Texas, which is, to Rob's point earlier, is one of the most dynamic in the world, really, right? And usually you have
Texans are so generous.
very generous. I mean, there's no end to our largesse. And so being able to tell those stories in Brilliant Magazine and then the Society Diaries and now Society Texas, thrilled to be able to, spotlight these philanthropies and, cast a brighter light on them and all the work that goes into it. And yes, people are wearing beautiful clothes, and yes, they have pretty smiles, but it really is the heart behind the organizations that we try and capture. That's why in this current issue we have 58 events. One of our cover story is the American Friends of Versailles, chaired by
and we love Alicia Bryant.
Yes.
Who
Hi, Alicia.
I grew up in Freeport, Texas.
Yes.
And her daddy being a lot. I mean, Alicia and I are close to age, but her daddy and Shelby grew up in the house 30 yards from my front door.
Oh my gosh, that's
Small world.
like
my
kissing
gosh.
cousins.
I
Yeah,
know.
that's incredible.
That's the thing that's so fascinating about the Texas social scene is it's so intertwined, and that's kind of the luxury, pun intended, of what we do. Is I see so many people, like I'll go to a barber shop and there will be 20 sports magazines and they'll pick up ours. They will look at the spreads in the front and then they immediately go to the social pages because they want to keep track of their friends.
Right.
You know, and I grew up in Pennsylvania, so
part?
outside of Philadelphia.
Okay.
So people from Philadelphia and Pittsburgh don't know each other. They don't engage with each other. And Erie, and like no one goes to all the cities.
And they sure don't know anyone in Scranton.
Yeah, exactly. So
Kidding, Scranton's lovely this time of year.
It's just fascinating to see all of that. And like whenever we do a weddings issue, there's so many where it's, you know, the bride's from San Antonio and the groom is from Houston. They went to UT and now they live in Dallas. And there's so much of that. That means that they're frequently going to the other cities and they know people in the other cities. And as someone who's not from here, I just find that so unbelievably fascinating how interconnected it is and why we can do what we do and we can go into other cities. And yes, we know people in those other cities, but we also have people in common with people in the other cities within Texas. And it's really like this matrix. That's probably the best way to describe it because it really is kind of this very complex web. And not in a bad way, but it's just this very complex, interconnected network, like the internet, where all those various vast things make everything work and everything tick.
And I also think that we're all ambassadors for this state. We should all present well. We all, you know, and again, you know, Texans have gotten a lot of guff over the years of being these sort of not bigger than life characters, but just yahoos. And there's well, if we're all yahoos, well, there's a lot of talent behind that yahoo-ness.
I still take JR.
Right, yeah. So it's interesting to be able to chronicle it and to chronicle a changing state. I've been doing this for 25 years. So since I returned back from Los Angeles. So to see the trajectory of Texas, there's no way I could have done this in Iowa. There's no way I could have done it in Nebraska. Couldn't have done it in, you know, wherever, Mississippi. It's an energy thing. And I think also the energy thing comes into play with the organizations, right? No one wants to go walk into a ballroom and there not be a really good energy there of the people who are there for the cause.
And the acoustics,
yes.
the people,
Right.
but the people, like, if there is one thing I will tell people that they need for a successful event, in addition to wow, fun, and heart, it is a good guest list. You have to vet it. And my rule is no one, not even your own spouse, should be on every single guest list you create. Because do you really want to take your spouse to your college fraternity or sorority reunion weekend or a high school reunion? Like, I am so glad that Lance has a friend that he gets to take to his high school reunion, so I don't have to go and her husband doesn't have to go. And it is a win for everybody because Lance gets to spend time and your friend gets to spend time catching up with all of your former classmates, and you don't have to spend all your time saying, I want to introduce you to so-and-so. So it's, you know, it just...
Or I want to introduce you to, I don't remember who this is,
Yes.
and I can't read their name tag
Will you
either.
be my wingman? Fun.
So yeah, so getting back to Alicia Bryan, who chaired the American Friends of the Versailles Gala, that's our cover story coming up. And you know, American Friends of the Louvre with Becca, American Friends of Notre Dame with Becca. I mean, on and on and on. Things that Lynn and Joanne, all these legendary people have done over the years, and being able to help tell their stories. People don't get tired of that.
No.
They love reading
No.
it, even if it feels like it's Groundhog Day and they've read the same
It's
thing a
their
million
Great
times.
Gatsby. It's their Gilded Age.
It
That's
is, but the
right.
thing is that the characters constantly change. So like the people that were on the scene 15 years ago are not the people that are on the scene now.
Yeah.
So many people cycle. It's almost like if you had a favorite soap opera growing up, there were maybe 4 or 5 characters that stayed on all the time, but all the other characters would always rotate out every couple of years.
You all know Deidre Hall, right?
Yes, of course. Well, we now know her as what's his name, Jimmy's mom on Hacks.
Oh, right. Oh my gosh, we love it. Love it.
Surprise cast.
I was like, you've got to be kidding.
You know, it's funny because we kind of have a conversation about Hacks a lot, and it's like, you know, Gene Smart's so so well cast.
Genius.
Perfect.
Genius.
Fabulous.
Right.
It was like her whole career led up to this point. I mean, it's so well written. It's so well done. But it's kind of that relationship that the two of them have is, you know, she's so used to everybody kind of just showing up and saying, oh, whatever you think, whatever you. And since Kristi and I have become friends, and it's almost that realization of what society has put on her in a certain way of, well, you're this, she is nothing like who the rest of the world thinks she is.
Yeah.
And having somebody come in, I didn't know who she was before we met and became friends. I
Okay.
had no
You didn't know the
idea.
legend of Kristi Schiller. Okay.
But I feel like for us, that has made our friendship and our relationship one of those where there's no bullshit, right?
Yeah.
Like if she says something that I think, I'm like, probably don't want to say that because it makes you look
Get that honest feedback. But it is. Everyone needs that in their life.
like I didn't Google you before we met. Like I had no preconceived
Yeah.
ideas. And, you know, being from Iowa and like you, being from a place where, you know, it was farmland, it was honest work, it was an honest wage. And there's not a society portion of my upbringing where you felt like, oh, I'm not kiss ass enough to belong to that group of people. You just evolved to your own very humble being of, I am who I am because I am who I am. But there was no label that went along with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And as an added, this is why it's always fascinating to meet people. I graduated college from the University of Iowa.
Cheers to you.
Cheers to Iowa.
I don't go to college.